Welcome to a very special episode of Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. Today I'm very excited to be talking to my friend, Hollywood star and author Eva Mendes. Eva, just like all of us, is a mother trying her best to show up for her kids as consciously as possible. Coming up, we're going to talk to Eva about her experiences with conscious parenting and her amazing new children's book. I cannot wait. Eva and her husband Ryan have two daughters who are 8 and 10 years old. She's been an early adopter of conscious parenting and has been a huge supporter of the movement. And now, author of this amazing book called Desi, Mama, and the Never-Ending Worries. Welcome, Eva Mendes, to my podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shefali. I love this podcast. As you know, I'm a huge fan and supporter.
Oh my goodness. I just want to tell all our listeners how impressed I've been by your curiosity. We connected with each other because you were such a fan of conscious parenting.
Yes.
Because it touched a chord in you. So tell our listeners what in particular resonated with you.
Well, first of all, radical awakening really was a radical awakening for me. So that made a huge impression on me, as to many others. But when I became a parent, let me see, my older one just turned 10 2 weeks ago. And then I have an 8-year-old. And I feel like the first few years were about surviving, especially they're so close in age. But once it started getting into communicating, talking, once it felt real, which for me was like the toddler age, I was shocked at how much I didn't know it yet. That's why conscious parenting hit me so deeply. But I was shocked at the amount of information I didn't know about myself in a way. I was shocked that I was like, why did I react like that? Or why would I do that? Or feeling one way and, just not being proud. I started having those moments of being in discord with myself, if that makes any sense. And it wasn't until conscious parenting, even that phrase, even that it all hit me. And then starting to read your parenting books, I realized that it was because parenting for me was so much about doing that work, internal work. And I had no idea. I would say that's the biggest surprise. When people ask me about the biggest surprise is about how much internal work needs to continue. Because I've been a fan of therapy for years. As soon as I could afford therapy, so my mid-20s, I've had a therapist in my life to, work with. I was just so grateful that I had a manuscript in a way. And then especially with the parent map, right?
The parenting map. Yeah.
I've had no sleep. I have a sick kid, a new puppy. But anyway, yes.
I think what you say about your experience will resonate with so many. That's what happened to me. I was appalled at how immature I was. I was disappointed, shocked, but I was like, why didn't anyone tell me that I wasn't ready for this?
Yes.
And that was my epiphany too, that, wow, I can do the parenting, but I don't know how to be a parent because of my childhood. So take us to your childhood a little bit, Eva, and tell us, what patterns do you find yourself repeating the most?
Oh my gosh. It's so interesting because, when I was in my 20s, I'm 50, I just turned 50 this year. And when I was in my 20s, for sure, I was like, I'm not going to be anything like my parents, that whole thing. And I'm shocked. Another shock is how much I'm like my mother. And I adore her. And she's on a pedestal. I dedicated the book to her as well as my man and my girls. But yeah, my household when I was little was very chaotic. A lot of screaming, a lot of anxiety, a lot of turmoil, even though I had a loving family and I still have a loving family. It was so chaotic. And my mom had a very difficult childhood full of trauma. And I don't want to say this, but the way I used to feel was well, I didn't go through what she went through, so I have no right to even be this way. I don't have that trauma. That's real trauma. What I've had is this. So I was also when becoming a parent, and I still have this guilt and not a real understanding of why I'm a certain way. And I kind of go, well, my mom had every reason in the world. She was basically a single parent. I love my dad, but he wasn't like around much. She had 4 kids. I mean, she has the stories of being in Cuba and like walking to get water from the well. You know what I mean? She lost her parents at a very young age. So a lot of, I think, and I hate this word, I hate this thing, but a lot of shame also came up for me because I was like, I have it so good. My mom, she fought to get here. I was the only one born in the States. Like, how dare I even complain, or how dare I even? So there was all this confusion around why I am the way I am. And only through more therapy and reading your books and reaching out to you, that's why I reached out to you with the big SOS, because I was like, I'm doing exactly what my mother did. And then I felt like, and I don't even have a reason to be this way, or a good enough reason, because I haven't gone through what she went through. So it's so complicated.
It is complex. So one is this generational absorption of this trauma, right? And how we don't learn these emotional regulation skills. And that's why I love this book so much, because you are teaching children through the simplest story. Everyone needs to get this book, how children can learn emotional regulation. So what you're saying is that chaos was really an emotional chaos, and you feel so guilty. So now you create chaos in your mind. And so now you're a mother in the present moment. You're confounded with so many emotions and you don't know how to navigate them. What pattern do you think has been the hardest for you to break as a mother?
There's been a few. I think that one of the hardest patterns for me is yelling, because I don't yell when they need me, quote unquote, like, or I would, I've never yelled like, shut up or anything. It's not, in my mind, it's not like a mean yell, but it doesn't matter. I yell. And, it's this yelling that I find so cultural, but like, it's like, okay, I'm having a really hard time getting through and not yelling, and the rushing and the yelling, that's the hardest thing for me. Yeah.
Talk about that cultural component of yelling, because I too come from a culture where, we've discussed, mothers throw slippers, they throw things, they yell, they smack, but it's not necessarily seen as evil. It's seen as part of the culture, but it does cause harm to the child's inner sense of self. So talk about that cultural piece a little bit.
My mother was definitely, again, so loving and so amazing, but it was a definite raising us by fear, like that whole thing that I really talk about being conscious of. And I hope I'm not going to look back in 20 years and go, oh, shoot, like I did that, because I really don't want to raise by fear. That's the one, I get emotional over it because it's so not fair to the kids. A lot of times when people meet my girls and they say, oh, they're so respectful and they're so, sweet. And I'm like, oh, thank you. But I'm like, oh no, I hope that they're just mimicking what they see. And I hope that I'm not unknowingly putting some kind of pressure on them through fear. Like I was raised in that way through threats and fears. Yeah, I'm trying. That's the most conscious thing I think I'm trying to be. I don't know if I answered your question, but.
No, I think it's so powerful because parents don't realize how that fear element, the threats, the punishment, the shaming lasts forever. I mean, look, you're 50 and you can still remember memories of that pain. That pain doesn't go away.
It doesn't. And I see what it's done to my siblings, and I see, what it's done to other people, and especially, I talk about my culture because it's what I know. And it's just, I feel like it's so embedded. That's again why I loved conscious parenting, because it's when, if I were to go on autopilot parenting, yeah, I could do it. They'd live through the day, but I don't. That's not what I want.
Isn't it so amazing when you begin to become conscious? Like the other day, I just began to become conscious of my sighing. Like I sigh. I didn't even know I was sighing so much till someone pointed that out. Or my daughter would say to me, why are you so angry? But I wasn't conscious of how I was looking.
Right.
So becoming conscious is both so scary, I think, for people. And that's why many people resist my message. They want the easy fix, right? It's so hard to look in the mirror.
Yes.
It's provocative. So how can
Yes.
we encourage other parents? And what did you do to have that courage to look in the mirror and go, you know what? I need to work on that.
I think, first of all, it's like just knowing that we're all in this together, and that none of us have a manuscript for parenting yet, but for life. Everyone's kind of figuring it out. And I see it as sharing information. That's the thing, is I don't see it as judgment. And as I've been promoting my kids' book, I'm like, this is sharing. Like, I'm not trying to this is what's worked for me, and this is what's working in this component and in this category or whatever it is. But if any mom has any advice or anything, wherever I can get it, any parent, any caregiver, of how I can get my 8-year-old to sleep in her own bed the whole night, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many different complicated parts. So by talking about my book, or the way I was receiving your books, is to me, that's just, they're tools that may or may not work, but I don't see it as a judgment. And I think that's why I feel like I absorb a lot and I take information in that I feel works for me, because I'll take any help I can get. And I'll take that about myself as well. That's how I'm about therapy.
But not many people are like that.
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, but I think maybe it's training as an actress. I came up as an actress when the internet was the comment section of things were just opening up, right? I'll never forget IMDb when that started. And it was great. You could look up who you were working with, who you were about to meet. It was informational. It was all the, international movie database. Anyway, IMDb. And I remember the first time ever I went down and read comments, because before that, I had not even thought about, I was like, comments. And I started reading these comments about me. And, we know how the comment section can be. But this is when I was, 25. And I was just starting pretty much and becoming an actress. And I went immediately to therapy, talked to my therapist about it. And I realized, and I worked on myself, and I said, it's going to suck in this area. This is going to be really hard. So I had to make peace with myself. And I said, look, if I'm going to go for it, I have to know that none of this is personal. When I don't get a job, it's not personal. When I don't, and it's true, nothing's personal, and that just gave me a freedom. And I think maybe it's years of practice taking so much criticism as an actress or an entertainer, or, a public figure. That's really helped me when it's come to parenting. I'm like, okay, yeah, I know this isn't personal. I don't feel judged.
I was pretty shocked, I have to say, and gratefully surprised at how vulnerable you've been with me in terms of your process and raw. And, you just ask questions from a very curious, open place. And even though the answer is going to sting you, you're able to take that in. And I wish more mothers were like that, because we are hiding behind this mantle of perfection. And you mentioned my book, A Radical Awakening, which really tries to shatter this mantle of perfection. But you've always been so open and vulnerable. Even before this interview, you were like, I still have questions. So ask your question, Eva.
Well, I think, okay, there's some that are deeper than others. But right now, I'm noticing that, especially because I've been working a lot lately from my phone a lot, because it's remote. I can be working anywhere. And I am doing this thing that I don't like, and I know I can be better. It's I'll be in here working on my phone, or even when I'm just next to them answering an email or something, and they'll be like, Mama. And I'm like, 1 second, I'm working, and I'm just like, yeah, Mama, hey guys, you can see that I'm working, I've explained this to you, but there's something about the way I'm doing that I don't like. And then there's something that I do where I'm like, guys, really? I'm working. Like, what is it? I don't like myself. And because I do it on a daily, I'm like, I have to figure this out. And it doesn't sound like a big deal, but I don't like it. I don't like the way I get. And then I get like a baby. Like I just get like, really, like, guys, come on. Like, really, I'm just, literally took you to the playground, like, the whole thing. I'm like, please just give me my time. Most moms have to go to work. I just to say, like, what is that? What is that? And how do I get rid of it? How do I change that tone? And
I love it. I love it. So, a couple of things. So, the first thing is that you are on repeat.
okay.
So, the first thing about a trigger is to notice that we are on rinse repeat. People often ask me, Dr. Shefali, how do I know I'm triggered? I go, because you're doing the same thing over and over. So, that's the first sign that something needs to change. Now, number two, whenever we think that something needs to change, it's our human instinct to point the finger on to the outside and go, you change.
Yes.
So that's what you're doing. Each and every day, you look at your children, you point the finger. It could be your children, your partner, anyone. And you subconsciously tell them, hey, you're the problem. You need to change. So what you're telling your children is, hey, guys, you stop bothering me. You stop bothering me. Guess what? They're not changing. So now we have to realize that, oh, it's me who has to create a different boundary. I keep expecting them to change. Why should they change? I need to change. So now you own the problem and the solution, and you create the boundary from within. See, you're expecting them to be a 50-year-old and create a boundary, but they look at you as an open cafeteria where they can go and get the food anytime, right?
Exactly.
You're the open library. Get the book, that's how children look at mothers, no boundaries. That actually is a good sign, although it's very hard for the parent. The good sign there is that your children feel so safe with you. They look at you as an ever full well where they can just get water out of any time. Eventually, they will learn boundaries, but right now they're too young. So who has the burden now of creating the sacred boundary? It's you. Right? You are actually trying to be there because you want to be there. You're guilty, but you're not really there. So you have to be brave to own, hey, I can't be here. So let me really not be here and create that sacred boundary, because that creates clarity and actually gives the right message to your children that you are honoring your space and you're not, giving double messages. Right now, you're giving a double message because
I am giving a double message.
Because you're guilty.
Right.
So how can you own it? Own it. I need space. I need a closed enclosure. I need to go. That takes ownership that what you're doing is important. So many mothers don't like to take space. So they do everything in front of the children and don't do anything well. It's because we feel guilty that what we're doing is not, something we are deserving of. So when you own that you deserve this space, this is your work that makes you joyful, then maybe you can take that space. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds about right. But what does that look like, Dr. Shefali? Because a lot of time we are in the same space, and I love that. What would that look like if we're all working, everyone's kind of like together, but doing their own thing? And I don't know why I like that. I just feel like even though we're doing our own, we're disconnected, we're still connected. But then what happens is it bleeds into like what I just described to you. So are you saying that creating that boundary would be me actually moving out of the room? Is that part of it?
Well, it depends, right? So number one, because your children are now 8 and 10, you can give them a choice when they begin to become needy.
Okay.
You can give them a choice. Okay, I can either do this and then be with you, or be with you and then be with this. So let's decide together how needy you are. And the second thing is, I could go to the other room, but I really like hanging out with you. But when I'm here, then you keep interfering. So help me help you. I want to be here, but I also don't want to keep saying the same thing to you. So should I just go there, right? And then maybe they'll be like, yeah, go there and come when you're finished. And then you can go without guilt. So look, the thing is this, we can't have everything, right? You want to be there, but you can't be there. So
that's the double message I'm giving again. Yeah.
The double message. And then guess what? And I've done this too, trying to be the loving mother. I actually end up the screaming mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I don't honor my space.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And then we're like, look, I was being so nice. I was trying to be there, and then we make them feel guilty.
Yes.
So just try to maybe take that little 15, 20 minutes, Eva. It's much better than getting irritated and then blasting off in a reaction. And guess what? That 15 minutes is not going to make them or break them if you're not there.
Right.
But that yelling could have an effect and then makes you feel guilty, and then you're overcompensating the next few hours, right?
Yes,
So what's the
exactly.
point? That's just so messy.
It's so messy. Yes.
We love being messy. We mothers especially, and I'm telling you, it's because of guilt. Guilt is such a messy emotion. And I don't know whether you feel it a lot, but I've had to really struggle.
Yes. I hate it so much. It's up there with shame for me. I'm like, oh, it's just such a hard one. Again, I feel like the guilt is embedded in my Cuban culture. And also, although I wasn't raised like strict Catholic, there was a lot of that Catholic guilt.
Yeah.
A lot of the punishment and the like. So yeah, guilt is something I'm working on a lot.
We're going to take a short break now, but when we return, more of this amazing conversation on how we can survive motherhood with the lovely one and only Eva Mendes. Welcome back. I am loving this amazing conversation with my dear friend Eva Mendes on all things womanhood and motherhood. So I have two questions that I think other women will really be helped by.
Yes, please.
So you're a working mother, right?
Yes.
And you're a public figure and a successful woman. So how does that affect your parenting in terms of guilt? Because I'm also a working mother, and I also have had this challenge of how do I negotiate with guilt, because it's eating me up. But I also know if I was a stay-at-home mom, not pursuing my passion, staying at home is not a problem. But if I was not pursuing my passion, that would eat me up too. So how do you negotiate? And I know it's a daily battle.
For sure, it's a daily battle. But for me, I think of like, what do I want to model for them? And then that for me gives me such clarity, like such clear vision. And it's like, I want them to see that I work, obviously, but that I sometimes love my work and I sometimes do not love my work, but I do it anyway. There's something that happens once I click into what I want to model for them that is just pure clarity for me. And I love it because I don't have that in other areas of my life, but in that one I do.
I just want everyone to just take a moment and just take this one big teaching moment that you've given us. If we can just align with, okay, what am I modeling right now? And I'll tell you another area this could work in really well is when our children are experiencing pain that either we've caused them or in their own lives, and we want to take them out of pain by either, let's go eat or let's distract ourselves. That's another place this question could work so well. Well, what am I modeling right now? That pain is difficult, that pain should be suppressed, that pain should be numbed, right? So if we can click into that, what am I modeling? And how can this be a teacher for our children, right? This is another version of that question, what am I modeling? Which really means, what are my children learning? What can they learn from this moment? Then we suddenly switch into warrior mode.
Warrior instead of warrior.
Yes, warrior. And I got this from your book, so we're going to talk about it in a moment. My other question to you, as such a beautiful woman, external and internal, in fact, the more beautiful, the more women struggle with aging, beauty, the pressure to look a certain way. And the public feels no compunction in just, shedding judgment on people like you. So how have you dealt with that? And I know you were referring to my book, A Radical Awakening, when we were talking in private. But
love it.
How have you grown into self-acceptance?
Therapy, and really enjoying the process of therapy, really enjoying getting to know myself. Like I just keep kind of surprising myself, even though I feel stuck in a rut sometimes. And then I'm like, so just kind of keep going deeper and deeper. But it's interesting, the thing about aging and like the superficial or aspect or, is that I feel like there's also a misconception out there. Like I'm 50 and there's no way I'm hiding my age, right? Like as far as like, I swear, I feel like when I was in my 20s, I tried to hide my age. It was weird. Like I didn't want to get old and I was so young. But I feel like, it started happening in my 30s and late 30s and then early 40s that it's just kind of like, oh shit, this is happening. Like I'm not exempt. I'm aging, and okay, I'm going to have to figure this out. How do I feel about this? So again, working on myself. And thank God it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't. So I've had times, I remember like when I was like on my 35th birthday, I swear I was on a plane to a job, and I was on a plane, and I had a little mirror with me, and I was just checking and I saw something. I was like, what is that? And it was like, oh my gosh, it was the beginning, I think, of me kind of going, it's happening to me. It's really happening. So then after just working with my therapist and really working on myself and just going like, I can't be in denial, because I feel like I said, when I was younger, I was more in denial. I'm like, I'm not going to get old. Like everyone else is getting old, I'm good, you know? And then, you know, somewhere around my mid 30s, it was like, oh shit, it's happening. So anyway, my point in telling you that is I've just been making peace with myself along the way. And I can honestly tell you that anything I've done, and I love a treatment like nothing else. And I love, you know, I love going in and taking care of my face and my body in any way I can from the inside out, but like outside, you know, I do not do it because I feel a pressure to. I'm too much of a rebel in that way. And I'm too much of a like, I don't know. Whatever I've done for myself. And I've been like, oh no, like that didn't look good, or that didn't work. Okay, let me see. But I don't know where I get that from, but it's this thing that I'm not doing it for anyone else. And the misconception that I think is that like if I start feeling a little extra flabby, I'm going to go to the gym because that's just whatever. Obviously, I want to stay healthy and for my kids and all that. But aesthetically, I do care, you know? I'm not like obsessive about it because I don't like going to the gym. But if I feel something, I'm going to like tone up, do some extra cardio, you know, see my trainer maybe an extra day a week. So when I see something that bothers me, like let's say my little thing is like down here, this area, you know, I go to a dermatologist. Like I just see something that I'm not okay with and I change it. But then there's stuff that I'm not like, it's not worth it to me. Like, for instance, I have really droopy lids and they're getting like droopier, right? And it changes like the way my eye is, you know what, I'm changing. But it doesn't bother me enough yet to do something about it because it's like, what am I going to do? Do you know what I mean? Like, so for me, it's such a personal, like, you know,
equation. And I love that. We all like to judge other women. That's really the core of it all. And each woman can calibrate her own relationship to her aging and decide for herself and play with it or not play with it or do something deeper. But I think, you know, what I'm hearing more is that you are coming to more peace with your insecurities and your strengths. And you know, people think that because they often will ask me this question, oh, how do you handle your aging? They expect me to say that I've made peace with all my insecurities. And I say, hell no, every day I find something I'm insecure with. What I've made peace with is that I'm insecure.
Exactly.
That's what I'm at peace with, right?
That's so good. Yes, yes.
Because it's such a utopia to think that you are going to not be insecure. That's a lie. There's no human on earth who's not insecure. So making peace with the fact that when I look in the mirror, I'm going to complain about something is actually accepting all our parts, the insecure parts and the secure parts.
I totally hear what you're saying. I feel like because I've had so much practice being in front of the camera and getting so much criticism that my insecurities, of course, there's some physical insecurities, but I've made peace with that, like the way you're saying it. And my insecurities lie in a different place. I'm very insecure when you do something to your face or your appearance, is that you want to try to look younger. And for me, that's not the case. Like, it's very interesting because, you know, I'd read comments and stuff like that at times. Sometimes I'm in the mood to read them. Sometimes I don't, but I'm not going to be like, I never read them. Yeah. Because a lot of times I actually like to reply to the women because that's where I like to connect, you know?
Right.
But of course there's like the bad that comes with the good. And I feel like there's a misconception on like, I'm not trying to look younger. I'm 50 and also like, just look it up. I'm not trying to like, you know, it's just like going to the gym. I guess it's that thing again, where I'm just like, I see something that I'm not comfortable with, or not even comfortable, that I'm like, ooh, that's bothering me. I take the action from there. I think it's more for me that I do it for myself and I check in with myself about it and going like, who am I doing this for? What am I doing this for again? And that's where I think the peace comes in.
And I think every woman needs to allow herself and give herself the permission, and every man to do something according to their own internal equation. No one can tell us what color to dye our hair. So why are
Right.
they telling us how we should take care of our face or our body? So I think we're getting to a better place, I think, with this as women, giving ourselves permission to please ourselves the way we need to please ourselves, that make us feel more aligned with who we want to be in the world. And just like you can't judge a woman for wearing 6-inch heels, we can't judge a woman for what she does with her face or her body. And the most important piece that you said, I think, is checking in with yourself and asking yourself, okay, and even if you are doing it for your man, that's okay too. And even if you are doing
Right.
it for your next movie, that's okay too. But just to be aware so that you're not blindly reacting to an external pressure, but you're really coming from an internal place. Yes?
Yes, exactly. Thank you for saying the words that I was struggling to say.
So this book, now you didn't need to write a book. You are already so, out there in the world. So tell me your deepest personal inspiration behind writing this book. It's called Desi, Mommy, and the Never-Ending Worries. Tell me your inspiration behind this.
My 10-year-old, when she was 5, she pretty much out of the blue, like she came up to Ryan and I and she said, Mama, Dada, I named my brain. And we were like, oh, that's interesting. And we were like, okay, what'd you name it? And I promised her I wasn't going to say what she named it because I like to get her permission before I talk about her. And I said, I won't say the name, but it's a very interesting name. And I said, okay, cool. And then it kind of became a thing, and then when she was struggling with a lot of worries that I feel like I've just passed down unconsciously, subconsciously, I was like starting to use that as a tool. I was like, wait a minute, that's your insert name brain. That's, Brian. It's not Brian, but that's, Brian. That's the part of your brain, Brian, that's like trying to bully you right now. No, that's not you. This isn't you. This is something separate than you. This is like, your mind is playing tricks on you. It's trying to a bully was really a great word. So I used it as a tool and still use it as a tool completely with both of them, that they need to separate themselves at times and be the observer and see what's happening, what's really happening, and not believe everything they think. So I was just like, oh my gosh, what a tool. I mean, I read Eckhart Tolle when, 20 years ago and, and I was, I still am trying to figure out, how to stay in that observer, space more often. But I don't know, I found it so simple and helpful the way she broke it down without even knowing, that I just really wanted to share it. And, it went through a few different titles. It used to be Train Your Brain. And, I have a wonderful editor who helped me. They're like, it's not so kid friendly. I'm like, yeah, but that's what anyway, I love what it is now because it goes hand in hand. But yeah, so that's how it started. And I just want to share what's worked for me because, I see these kids and we're also, everyone, not just kids, but we're all so stressed and worried. And drop off your kid at school. You're telling me there's not a parent that's not worried in the United States,
Right. Right.
about whatever it may be. So I just wanted to share. That's really maybe this helps.
I mean, it's so beautifully written. It's beautifully illustrated, but the simplicity behind the powerful message is really what is key. And just for people to know, they should read it. But what I found so powerful is that through the art of storytelling, you are teaching the child this power of observation so that they are not overtaken and overwhelmed by their own brain. And in a very simple way, you're teaching Desi how she can better control her thoughts and manage them in a way that empowers her versus disempower her. And if a parent read this just once a week to their child, when they're young, imagine by the time they're 6 or 7, this will become the way they talk about themselves. This will become the way they talk to their own thoughts and their own brain. So you have done a great service for parents because you've broken it down, right? We all need simple ways to tell our kids, hey, that's your brain, don't take it so seriously. But it's hard because it's such an abstract concept. But you've taken this abstract concept and put it into a beautiful story and given the tool to these children that they can use to train their own brain. And that's not easy to do, Eva. So I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
It's called Desi, Mommy, and the Never Ending Worries. What has been the most surprising thing that you've learned from parents or children on this book tour of yours?
Just as how many adults were like, I like this for me. And I'm just like, that's been really surprising and fun because I also love the connection you have with your kids when you read. And obviously, like, I still read picture books to my kids at night because my 10-year-old is like totally into it. The more simple, the better, at night for us anyway. So, but it's about the connection. So when I like a book, we'll revisit it. Like I love All the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss. So I read that. That's how I feel about that book. So I tend to go back to that every, often. So when a parent tells me like they enjoy it, that's been the biggest surprise and also the biggest compliment because it's like, okay. And when you enjoy it as a parent, the connection with the child is stronger when experiencing the book. And it's not like, I've been there too when I'm tired and I'm like, just turn the page and kind of keep it monotone and okay, we did that. So when there's a connection to it, it's just makes it that much more special.
Yeah, and the last time I picked up a children's book was maybe like, I don't know, 20 years ago. My daughter's 21 now, 22.
Wow.
But at the end of my reading this, I exhaled and I entered this whimsical, calmer place. And it reminded me of the power of bedtime stories, how that late night connection time is actually when our children open up the most. And so I'm just reminding all parents of children under the age of 10 or 12, you can still read to your children at night. It's such a powerful way to connect. Don't give that up too easily because once it's my daughter's 22, when am I going to be able to read her a story,
Right.
And I think the power of bedtime stories are not, highlighted enough. I think we underrate the power of bedtime stories. So thank you for writing this book. Thank you for supporting my work in conscious parenting and
Thank you.
And being such an ambassador. It's been a pleasure having you, Eva. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Again, thank you for all you've done. I'm just like, I've learned so much from you, as so many of us have.
Oh my goodness. I so enjoyed this conversation with Eva. I always do whenever I speak with her because she embodies such a vulnerability, such a raw quality that is so relatable. Given all her success and fame out there in the world, at the end of the day, her humility reminds us that each one of us is allowed to be imperfect. And what stands her out from the crowd is her willingness to grow. So I hope everyone listening gives themselves the permission to be vulnerable, to be honest with themselves, and allow themselves to be imperfect, all the while evolving and growing. Don't forget to check out her amazing new book, Desi, Mommy, and the Never Ending Worries. This is a beautiful story that you can read out to your little ones, your little children, to help them deal with their anxieties. And we all know that children today surely need help with this. I will see you on the next episode of Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. Parenting and You with Dr. Shefali is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional medical, psychological, psychotherapeutic, coaching, healthcare, or other qualified professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment.